Thank you for choosing the Talking Through the Miraculous podcast. We are here to share stories of God and His blessings. It's that simple. Extraordinary stories of how God loves us and how miracles still happen. Hello, family. Thank you for joining us once again for the Talking Through the Miraculous podcast. This is season 3, episode 5. And I really want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us. I hope that you're being blessed by the stories we share and that something you hear just helps you get through another day. Aaron couldn't join us today. Through scheduling conflicts, we just couldn't get together. But I'm going to go ahead and do this one by myself. Our first story is going to be from my nephew. He's actually my great nephew, so he's my nephew's son. He's becoming an awesome young man, and this is his story.
Hey, this is Trey, and I just finally just got in that space to where I can just want to kind of talk and share my story. I guess just what I've been through and how, like the podcast says, how God has affected me in a miraculous way, and I think it's just a blessing to be alive every day, and I'm 25 years old. You already know this one, uncle. I'm from Mississippi, and I've had the pleasure of just traveling the world doing what I love to do, and that's play basketball, inspire people, help train people, give advice, be a mentor to the youth and even some of the older generation that I've talked to. I mean, I've given advice to people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And I've shared my story and also have listened to them and gotten wisdom from them. And I just love how God uses people to inspire us and to prolong our life, and our goals and just kind of just what we're looking forward to, what we're doing and what we need, because a lot of the times it's hard to really see what we need from God, because a lot of times we don't know how to necessarily ask, like, God, what do you need from me? Or what can you use to, help you help me, And for me, I'm 25 years old and I've had the chance to travel to Florida, to Vegas, to Dallas, to Arlington, there's so many different, Oklahoma, so many different parts. I've traveled recently last year overseas to El Salvador. And I was like, man, this is crazy, And it's been through a lot. I've dealt with a lot of negativity over the years, being 25. I'm talking about this generation and it's even from older generations, from the millennials, Generation X. And the main thing I've always struggled with is just living in my truth. Or people have struggled against with me is living in my truth, because again, when you're growing up in the world and you're trying to be something, you're always going to be faced with what you should be doing with your life. How to go about doing something that's your dream or what others may think is best for you. And I always say, none of us really know what we feel is best for us. It's because we're all still figuring out our lives. Even when you're 60 years old, you're still figuring out your life. You're still figuring out how to get to 61. And it does not matter whose path gets somewhere quicker than the others, man. It's like Nipsey said, man, there's no traffic in your lane, so just stay in your lane. There's no traffic, And you gotta run your own race. And it's gonna go at the pace that God sees fit that your life should go at your pace, And I've learned that, no matter what I've gone through, I'm gonna get through it. As long as I continue to stay positive and find meaning in the suffering, and that's how I can really get to where I want to be in life. Is continue to find meaning in the suffering, because life is suffering every day. No matter what, we're always gonna learn something new, feel a different emotion, or feel the same emotion, and it's always feelings and perspective, And as long as I think a person never gives up on themselves, that's when I think you truly can understand how good God is and really define your success. It's the fact that you never gave up and you continue to go through the struggles and inspire others to live in that truth and continue to go through those struggles, because it's going to be all of that every day, from everyone, no matter who it is, family member, loved one, spouse. It does not matter. Business people, they're all going to have their say-so and perspective, and it's going to be on you to truly just live in your truth, walk with God and faith, and really go achieve your goals in life.
Thank you so much, Trey, for sharing your story. It's just crazy how much you've grown. You're a grown man now. I think the last time I actually saw you, you were 14, 15. You're 25 now. It's crazy. But I'm loving hearing how you're becoming a man and a godly man. I enjoy when we talk every once in a while via text or whatever, but you do keep in contact through the years. I do appreciate you. I appreciate the story, and I love you, sir. Our next story is from another coworker of mine. His name is Keith. Now, Keith had a pretty serious health issue, and he's telling how God brought him through that.
Hi, my name is Keith. About 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I had a heart attack, had 5 stents put in. At the time I was diagnosed, the doctors told me that there is a chance that you can beat type 2 diabetes. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and certainly took a lot of prayer from a lot of people to help me get through it. 2.5 years into it, as of last month, I started my journey with a blood sugar well over 200. My A1C was at a 7.7. And then through just hard work, dedication, diet control, and again, a lot of prayer, I stayed diligently working on what was going to be needed to beat the diabetes. And as of last month, my attending doctor explained to me that my A1C had been dropped down to a 5.8. My daily numbers were below, on average, of a 120, and he stopped all medication. Actually told me, he said, I'm not really even at the pre-diabetic range, and he seen no reason for me to continue any diabetes medication or any diabetes care, and felt that I had kind of beaten type 2 diabetes, which was extremely excited. I certainly owe everything to God, everything to my family for all their support. There were days and there were times when it was really challenging, and I go to church regularly, and I would talk to my pastors and everybody, and just through God's grace and intervention, I was able to beat diabetes. And for those out there who don't believe it can be done, it certainly can be done. You just have to have the will, you have to have the determination, and there's going to be a lot of naysayers out there that say, oh, you can't do it, but you can actually beat type 2 diabetes. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. So that's kind of my story. I tell people, and people have asked me, what are you doing? And well, it's a lifestyle change. I continue to monitor what I eat. I continue to exercise. And when I say exercise, it's not rigorous. It's just constantly moving and being on the go and, being active. And the more active you are, the better it is for your body. As far as diets, people ask me, what do I eat? I eat the same thing as everybody else. I just eat in moderation and stay away from certain foods that I know are going to be triggers for blood sugar. And so that's my story. Anybody ever asks you, can you beat type 2 diabetes? The answer is yes.
Thank you so much, Keith, for sharing your story. I remember when you actually had your heart attack, and it was very scary seeing you go through that, knowing that you're just a few years older than myself. But I also noticed how when you did come back to work, how conscious you were about your food, about what you eat. and how you were making conscious choices to be healthier, and it paid off for you. And that's amazing, sir. Thank you once again for your story. Our last story is going to be from Jarrett. Jarrett shared a story earlier this season, and his submission was long enough and good enough for me to split it into two stories. So this is the second half of the story he shared with me earlier this season. Thank you once again, Jarrett.
In 2020, my son was born under traumatic circumstances, and that led to anxiety and depression being within the home as a result of the trauma that we experienced during his birth, which was a miracle in itself that he's here, that my wife is here, but there were remnants from that miracle that we had to deal with. And so that's January 2020, a couple months before the world shuts down due to COVID-19. And so it's a real difficult sort of situation within our household, just mentally, as we try to deal with all of these things. In this year, I'm trying to dive in a little bit deeper into my faith, because I am grateful for the fact that my family is whole. And I know that that was because of God. And so my heart is just in a place where I'm seeking more during this time. I'm reading the word daily. I'm looking at 1 or 2 sermons a week to just try to get as much as I can in terms of building myself up spiritually. While I'm doing this, I feel like that I've plateaued in my walk. And so I'm begin praying for a deeper relationship with God, because I realized that I hadn't done that. I hadn't taken it to Him to position it in that way. So I hadn't asked, so maybe I hadn't received. And so at that point, I was praying for this deeper relationship with God. And that probably started toward the latter half of 2020. Going into 2021, January 2021, I remember this sermon on a Sunday, normal Sunday, where the family is watching it on the couch via live stream. At the outset of the sermon, there's just this number that continues to pop in my head: 6,000, 6,000, 6,000. And it's happened maybe 4 or 5 times from praise and worship through the end of the sermon. And then at the end of the sermon, the pastor, she mentioned something as it relates to offering and the number 6. And it hit me like spirit was clear, like, I'm asking you to offer $6,000. And at that point, I kind of laughed, because me and God have that relationship where I laugh at the things He does, and I feel like He laughs at the things I do. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Because anyone that knows me knows that I am very intentional about spending, and I hadn't been one to that point that would tithe consistently. I would tithe when I felt the Spirit led me to tithe, but that was in no way consistent week to week or even month to month. So for me to offer $6,000 was just extreme, right? It was extreme coming from where I was at that point. I don't think I had spent $6,000 on anything. Maybe the down payment on the house, that was it. So it's a big deal, right? And so I'm sitting there having this brief conversation with God, like, you out of your mind, like you crazy, you gotta be kidding. Like I'm misinterpreting all of this. He's like, oh, okay, so the money is what you worship. That's more important to you. And I'm like, well, obviously, no, wait, that's not what I'm saying. And so when put in that context, I'm like, if that's what this means, then obviously you are my priority. I think I've demonstrated that. So if that's what I need to do to make sure that we on the same page, I looked over at my wife and I kind of smiled and laughed. I'm like, babe, you won't believe what's on me right now, but I just want to let you know that I feel like Spirit is telling me to offer $6,000. And this woman is amazing. She was like, something to the effect of, if that's what the Spirit is telling you to do, you need to do it. Like, what wife says that in that situation? But she did. I love her. She is the one that He brought to me, and I appreciate Him forever for that one. That's also a miracle that we together. That's another story for another day. So the interesting thing about the 6,000 that was an offering that I thought was like this big heavy lift was getting over the hurdle, and I'm choosing money over God, where I definitely didn't want that to be the case. About 4 months later, the bonus that I received at work was slightly over, I want to say $6,600. So everything that I had put in up front ended up coming back around a few months later And to be honest, when I think about everything that I went through, I asked for it, right? I asked for a deeper relationship with God. And in asking for that deeper relationship with God, if I think about the relationships that I truly value in my life, the closest people to me are the ones who have gone through trials with me, the dark times with me. And so by continuing to ask for that deeper relationship, in January, that whole offering piece was, do you trust me? Do you really trust me? And by saying yes, with the action of saying, if this is what you say and do, I'm doing it. A few weeks later, everything goes into the whole situation, right? And so it was a test. It was a test of my faith in him that he could carry me through. And once I realized that, again, the weight lifted because I know who I'm walking with. And he's shown me different examples on different occasions that he will come through. And he's consistently come through. And so it's just up to me now to be able to step out there in faith. And I really believe that all of this was to bring me nearer to him, because that's what I was asking for, that deeper relationship. And without the trials, the relationship couldn't have been deeper.
And lastly, we are resources to be used by God to glorify him whenever he sees fit, through discipleship, mentorship, our testimony, sharing our time, talents, treasures, which is why the platform that this podcast provides for all to share their testimony is such a blessing to help those that are willing to glorify God. So I thank you all for listening to my life-altering testimony. My name is Jarrett, and I pray that the Holy Spirit uses this to touch those that need it, to ultimately find peace in the midst of a storm. The relationship that's built with God during that storm is more than worth what we have to endure. So go deeper with God and be a blessing to others. Be blessed.
Wow, Jarrett. Wow, that's crazy. It's amazing that you were first present enough to hear the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And then the fact that you actually followed through with it is just amazing. And like always, God came through in the end. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for both of your submissions. Miss you, bro. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Talking Through the Miraculous podcast. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and we will see you next time. Thanks again for listening. If you love what we do, please like, review, and share the show. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or directly on our website, miraculouspodcast.com. Today's episode and all music was produced by B Black. On our website, miraculouspodcast.com, you can find out more about the podcast, contact us with any questions, or submit your own story. Thanks again, and remember, miracles still happen.